The day I found out my sister lied about having cancer was the same day I realized she thought I didn't deserve my own money. She stood in my kitchen, crying, holding a folder of fake medical papers, telling me she needed surgery or she might not make it to Christmas. And I believed her. I wired her $22,000 that night, every dollar I had saved for a down payment on my first home. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. 3 months later, I saw her tagged in photos from Cabo. That's when I understood something she once said wasn't a joke. People without kids don't really need money anyway. My name is Hannah Collins, I'm 34, I live in Denver, and I don't have kids. Not because I can't. Not because I hate them. I just never built my life around the idea that motherhood was mandatory. I built my life around stability. I worked 2 jobs through my 20s, paid off my student loans early, skipped vacations, drove the same used Honda for 8 years, and saved carefully. My older sister, Melissa, chose a different path. She married at 22, had 3 kids by 28, and never really worked consistently. She always said family was her real job. And honestly, I respected that. But Melissa also had a pattern. If something broke, someone else paid. If she overspent, someone else covered it.
First it was our parents.
Then her husband. And when her marriage fell apart, somehow it slowly became me. At first it was small things. Can you help with daycare this month? The kids need new winter coats. I'll pay you back after tax season. She rarely paid me back. Still, I told myself she was struggling. She had kids. I didn't. I made good money working in tech. What was a few $100s here and there? But the surgery call was different. She sounded terrified. She said doctors found something serious. She said insurance wouldn't cover the full procedure. She said she didn't know who else to ask. And when she whispered, "I'm scared, Hannah," I didn't hesitate. I emptied my savings account the same night. I had no idea I wasn't saving her life. I was funding her vacation. After I sent Melissa the $22,000, she hugged me like I had just rescued her from a burning building. She cried into my shoulder and kept saying, "I don't know what I'd do without you." I remember feeling proud of myself. Not because I had the money, but because I could help. It felt like this was what family was supposed to be. She told me the surgery was scheduled in 2 weeks. It was supposedly some kind of emergency abdominal procedure. She said doctors had found a mass, but she avoided specifics. I didn't push. I'm not a medical expert, and honestly, I didn't want to scare myself by Googling anything. The 2 weeks before her surgery were strangely calm.
Too calm.
She didn't seem panicked. She wasn't researching recovery options or asking about post-op care. When I offered to take time off work to help with the kids, she brushed it off and said her friend Tara would handle everything. That should have been my first red flag. Melissa never turned down free help. The night before the supposed surgery, I texted her, telling her I loved her. She responded hours later with, "Thank you for everything. Tomorrow will be hard." The next day, I waited for updates. Nothing. By 3 p.m., I texted again. No response. Finally, around 7 p.m., she sent a short message. "Out of surgery. Resting. We'll call tomorrow." No details.
No explanation.
Just that. When she called the next afternoon, she sounded normal. Not groggy. Not weak.
Just tired, she said.
She told me the surgery went well and that she'd need a few weeks to recover. I asked about follow-up appointments. She said they'd schedule them soon. Over the next month, something felt off. She wasn't complaining about pain. She wasn't restricted in movement. In fact, she sounded energetic every time we talked. When I asked how recovery was going, she'd changed the subject to the kids. Then, about 6 weeks later, I noticed she had stopped mentioning the surgery entirely. When I asked how her last checkup went, she said, "Oh, they cleared me." That was it. Cleared from what? What exactly had they removed? What was the diagnosis? Her answers were always vague, always rushed. And then one Friday night, while scrolling Instagram in bed, I saw the photo that made my stomach drop. Melissa, standing on a beach in Cabo.
Done.
Smiling. Holding a margarita. Posted 3 days ago. Caption. Much needed getaway. The date stamp hit me harder than the picture. It was exactly 2 months after her life-saving surgery. I stared at that Cabo picture for a long time, hoping I was misunderstanding something. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe someone tagged her randomly. Maybe she had scheduled it to post later. But when I clicked through the rest of the album, there were at least 20 pictures.
Different outfits.
Different restaurants. Poolside selfies. A boat day. All uploaded over the last 3 days. And then I saw the comment from her friend Tara. So glad the surgery fund worked out, face with tears of joy. My chest went cold. I clicked into Tara's profile. More Cabo pictures.
Same dates.
Same resort. Same group of women. I called Melissa immediately. She didn't answer. I texted her. Why are you in Cabo? No response. I waited 10 minutes, then called again. Straight to voicemail. That's when I did something I probably should have done months ago. I searched the name of the hospital she told me she had surgery at. I called their billing department and asked about payment records under her name. I said I needed documentation for tax purposes since I had transferred funds. They had no record of her. Not for surgery. Not for consultation. Nothing. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit down on my kitchen floor. When she finally called me back an hour later, she sounded annoyed. Not scared. Not guilty. Annoyed. Why are you blowing up my phone? She said. I didn't ease into it. I just asked, what surgery did you have, Melissa? There was a pause. Then she sighed. It wasn't exactly surgery, she said.
I felt something inside me snap.
Then what was it? She hesitated before saying, look, I was stressed. The kids were stressed. I needed a break. And you had the money, Hannah. I couldn't even process the words. You told me you might not make it to Christmas. I was overwhelmed, she snapped. You don't understand what it's like. You don't have kids. And then she said the sentence that I will never forget. You don't really need that kind of money. It's not like you have a family to support. That's when I realized she didn't feel guilty at all. In her mind, my savings weren't mine. They were extra, disposable, available, because I didn't have children. I hung up without saying another word. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like helping my sister. I felt like making her understand exactly what $22,000 actually means. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten her. I didn't even tell her parents. Instead, I got organized. The next morning, I printed everything. The wire transfer receipt, our text messages about the surgery, the screenshots of her Cabo trip, and Tara's comment about the surgery fund. I saved voicemails. I backed up call logs. If Melissa thought I was just going to cry about it and move on, she clearly didn't know me as well as she thought. On Monday, I met with an attorney. I didn't tell him it was my sister at first. I just explained the situation. Funds transferred under false medical pretenses. Fraud by misrepresentation. He didn't hesitate. That's actionable, he said, especially with written proof. When I told him it was my sister, he gave me a look, not judgmental, just realistic. Family cases get messy, he warned. Messy didn't scare me. Being disrespected did. I sent Melissa a certified letter 3 days later. It was simple. It outlined the total amount owed, $22,000. It included copies of the evidence. And it gave her 30 days to begin repayment, or I would proceed with legal action for fraud. She called me within an hour, furious. You're seriously threatening to sue me? She yelled. I'm asking you to repay what you stole. I replied calmly. I didn't steal it. You gave it to me. Based on a lie. She tried everything.
Guilt.
Anger.
Tears.
She even dragged the kids into it. You take food out of your niece's mouths? But here's the thing, I wasn't taking anything. I was asking for what was mine. When manipulation didn't work, she switched tactics. She called our parents first. She told them I was harassing her over a misunderstanding. So I went to their house with my folder. I laid everything out on the kitchen table. The fake surgery texts, The hospital confirmation that she was never admitted. The Cabo photos. My dad went quiet. My mom looked like she might cry. Melissa had told them she'd had a minor procedure. She had even let them send flowers. That was the moment the narrative shifted. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about deception. 2 weeks later, she received formal notice from my attorney. And for the first time since Cabo, she realized I wasn't bluffing. 30 days passed. On day 31, she was served. Not by me, by the court. And suddenly, that extra money she thought I didn't need became very, very real. Getting my sister served wasn't satisfying the way people imagine revenge to be. There was no dramatic showdown. No yelling in a courtroom hallway.
It was quieter than that.
Colder. Melissa tried to fight it at first. She claimed it was a gift. But the texts about surgery, the timeline, the hospital confirmation, it all worked against her. Her own words buried her. About 6 weeks into the process, her attorney reached out to mine. She wanted to settle. She didn't have $22,000 sitting in an account.
Of course she didn't.
Cabo had been just one part of it. There were credit cards, shopping sprees, and other stress relief expenses. But the court didn't care about her stress. It cared about fraud. We agreed on a structured repayment plan, legally binding, automatically withdrawn from her account every month. If she missed payments, wage garnishment would kick in. The first transfer hit my account on a Friday morning. $1,200. I didn't feel happy. I felt steady. Over the next year and a half, every payment came through. On time.
No excuses.
No emotional phone calls. Our relationship shrank down to nothing but transaction confirmations. Family dinners became awkward. She avoided eye contact. I stopped offering help. And something unexpected happened during that time. I bought my house. Not because I suddenly had extra money, but because I adjusted. I rebuilt my savings. I worked a little more. I stayed disciplined. And ironically, the court-ordered payments helped restore what she tried to erase. The last payment cleared on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember looking at my banking app for a long time. The balance was finally whole again. Melissa texted me that night. "Are we done now?" I stared at the message before replying.
Yes.
We're done. And I meant it in more ways than one. People think revenge is about hurting someone back. For me, it wasn't. It was about drawing a line. It was about teaching someone that my life, even without kids, has value. My work has value.
My time has value.
My money was never extra. It was earned. And the most satisfying part of this entire story isn't that I got paid back. It's that she'll never look at me and see an easy target again. If you made it this far, thank you for being part of Revenge Files. Stories like this remind us that boundaries matter, and sometimes the strongest revenge isn't loud, it's smart. If you enjoy real, gripping revenge stories told the way they actually happen, make sure you hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Files and turn on notifications so you never miss the next case. New revenge stories drop every week, and trust me, the next one is even crazier. See you in the next file.